Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast. Terry DuPont is the founder of DuPont Advisory Group, a group dedicated to providing comprehensive services to successful business owners, medical, and other professionals. Terry has top-of-the-table status in the prestigious International $1 Million Roundtable, placing him among the top 0.1% of all professional financial advisors in the world. Terry's philosophy is, I've learned that I grow and prosper more by focusing on the success of others, rather than fretting over my own. Terry is a certified financial professional with the Institute of Financial Wellness, an advisor for the Power of Zero Taxes in Retirement, chartered retirement plans specialist, certified wealth preservation planner, and certified philanthropic developer. On the podcast, Terry brings together experts in their field who have succeeded in building their business to share their secrets with you. And now, here's your host, Terry DuPont.
Welcome, everyone, to Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. And I'm your host, Terry DuPont. Today, ladies and gentlemen, on our episode, we have Josh Malinchuk. And Josh is president of JM Tax Advocates, which is a tax specialist in Fishers, Indiana. And they have a significant experience, or have significant experience with delivering cost reduction opportunities in the areas of real and personal property, tax reviews, compliance, and economic incentives. Josh brings extensive experience in real and personal property tax appeal advocacy, real estate appraisal and testimony, economic incentive procurement and audits, property tax compliance planning and delivery, business combination property tax due diligence and research, and fixed asset reviews and planning, property tax accrual reviews, and planned value estimates, along with Sarbox 404 property tax compliant control evaluation. Josh, that was a mouthful. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and your members.
Yeah, we're honored to have you, Josh. And so thank you for taking the time out. Josh, can you tell us a little more, and in layman's terms for our listeners and viewers, what it is that you do? Because I read a list, but they may not, have their arms around all that. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why you started your career?
Yeah, so what my team does here at JM Tax Advocates is we'll essentially take the commercial and industrial property tax bill for our clients and evaluate how our client is managing the property tax. And usually that kind of looks like this. They pay the bill and that's it. And hopefully they pay the bill on time, right? To avoid the 10% penalty. And so we'll basically take that management process and insert what's called a review process. So we'll scrutinize all of the kind of inputs for the property tax bill. If it's the tax on the building and land, which is your real estate tax bill, we'll look at how the assessor is estimating fair market value, and we'll come up with our own independent determination of what the proper assessed value should be to determine if an appeal should be filed and what the basis of that appeal should be. And so the whole mission there is to move the needle south on the tax bill, to lower that bill. On the business personal property side, depending on the state reporting requirements and whether a state taxes business personal property on such items as manufacturing equipment, inventory, other furniture and fixtures and the like, we'll review the returns that are prepared by either internally with the client or with their CPA firm. And we'll, again, insert our review process to evaluate whether amended returns should be filed for current year filings, possibly back year filings. So there's a lot of moving parts with that type of review. But it all adds to the bottom line through improved profitability when we're done, if all goes well, right? And so on average, we're able to lower the property tax bill by 20%. And so it's an extremely valuable service. Not many companies, or especially their generalist CPA firms, will know how to review a property tax bill and lower it based upon, that extensive review and audit process. So that's kind of what we do on the property tax side. On the incentives, we're really kind of looking at forward planning for the business expansion. So we're looking at such inputs as capital expansion at certain locations, whether the building is going to expand, whether the equipment levels are going to expand, and then evaluating headcount expansion, looking at certain skill building that might be occurring within the plant to determine if a grant should be pursued for those education efforts. And so, there's a lot of moving parts with the incentive planning as well. But there's a lot of value with that. And there can be cash grants available to match some of the funds that businesses are outlaying for some of these activities. There may be kind of a moratorium process that you have to put in place to stay the executioner on property taxes for a period of time. And so each state kind of has their own incentive process. And when you're looking at project-based incentives, depending on the magnitude of the project, will also drive what potential benefit and the magnitude of that for any business that is expanding. So the biggest deal with incentives is really getting ahead of the expansion by at least 6 to 9 months, because certain activities will actually disqualify that project from incentives, such as filing a permit or going ahead and advertising that you're going to expand there to start, hiring efforts at that locale, or walking down to the economic developer planner office and saying, hey, I'm going to expand. What can you do for me? I mean, that's very typical for a business to do that. At that point, they've lost what's called their but-for provision, which is but for the incentives, you wouldn't have,
Gotcha.
dug dirt and expanded. So, that's an important planning process there.
Now, you let the cat out of the bag, you kind of mess things up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, as far as my background, I worked in public accounting for about 18 years, half in Big Four and then half in top 10 regional accounting. My career started in financial audit, a financial audit position. I just really did not enjoy performing financial audits. So after about 2 years with working heavy hours, heavy travel, small raises to compensate all of the hard work and efforts, I wanted a different path. And so the accounting firm that I was working for at the time bought out a boutique state and local tax consulting firm who, had a property tax group in-house. And so I decided to intern there and just see, kind of what property tax was all about, right? And, a lot of the skills that I learned, with performing financial audits really translated into that function. And 28 years later, I've become an expert and, work on some of the largest industrial and commercial property tax assessments with commercial property throughout the United States.
Okay. So you're not restricted to Indiana by any stretch?
No. And so we do a lot of work within the Midwest, Southeast, some in the Northeast, mainly kind of clustered centrally in the United States, but we have capabilities of working any state in the United States, as long as it's not a practice of law state, which in that case, we're partnering with Compton Legal Counsel to execute our work plan for our client.
Okay. I failed to mention at the beginning that you are a CPA, certified public accountant, correct?
Yeah, so I have about 8 credentials, including a CPA and certified general real estate appraiser license, along with the CMI designation with the Institute for Professionals in Taxation as well, and then a handful of state credentials as certified tax representative uh, uh, licenses to be able to practice as a property tax consultant in the states that require that license.
Gotcha, gotcha. Uh, you mentioned a couple things, and something entered my mind, and that what you do, and pardon me if I'm well off, but what you do sounds like cost remediation, but specialized on property tax on steroids.
That is correct. And most businesses don't realize that property tax is such a heavy burden and is likely the number one or number two tax burden for any capital intensive business. So it's a big deal. Not many practitioners know how to, again, review and implement a strategy, or maybe they don't have the credentials or experience know-how to move the needle south. And so that property tax overage, let's just say a business doesn't scrutinize what could be a $100,000 overage, right? Well, that property tax error is not going to go away, and it's going to perpetuate every year, and it's not going to resolve itself by itself, right? Unless someone like a specialist like me comes in, diagnoses the issue, possibly files a protest with the local or state government that was responsible for assessing the property, and going through a petition process all the way through to the end, where there's some acknowledgement by the assessor that their original assessment was wrong, by settling at a lower value, which then drives the tax bill downward. And so I would say it's rare that I will stumble into a company that knows every state process, soup to nuts, to be able to execute a property tax reduction strategy. And that's where we really shine and can help with a business when they want to save money and improve their profitability with such a heavy burden area like property taxation.
Yeah, and you bring up a couple valid points, I believe. For our listeners that are not business owners, or they're business owners, but they're not in commercial or industrial, and these people are thinking property taxes. What you're talking about is much, much, much more on property taxes than property taxes on a home, correct? I mean, it's a big deal because instead of be paying, I live in a rural area here in northern Indiana.
Mhm.
And mine are expensive. They're about $3,600 a year compared to most homeowners, right? And and
Right.
and but that's nothing compared to taxes on commercial property. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so the tax bill is much higher. But in Indiana, commercial and industrial property owners actually pay a higher tax rate,
Mhm.
sometimes as much as 3 times higher, because of what's called the circuit breaker rate. And some of those kind of rate categories or assessment categories exist all over the United States, where the commercial and the industrial guys are paying a much higher bill than the homeowners, because the homeowners can vote, businesses can't. And so, they're going after the businesses for that pound of flesh, with property taxes. Terry, the other complicating factor is, if you were to try to estimate the value of your home, you're going to have typically a lot of sales in your neighborhood. You'll pretty much know within a close proximity where your assessed value per foot and per bedroom should be, based upon sales that occur, repeatedly, within, say, 6 months in the neighborhood. With commercial and industrial property, especially a rural community like you're explaining, you're lucky to see a sale of, let's say, a 500,000 square foot industrial plant, like maybe ever. or
Yes.
or if you do, it's going to be 10 years ago. So finding quality transaction data, when most county and state assessors are limited with their resources can be a real undertaking. And so, in that case of that 500,000 square foot industrial property, that local assessor almost has no chance of accurately estimating the fair market value of that property just through the means that they have. And so what ends up happening is they'll develop more of an insurable value approach. They'll have these mass appraisal models that start with cost and then some linear depreciation with that the state will publish. And then there's no kind of checkpoint with what that value per foot range should be based upon what a typical market participant would expect to pay for that property, right? By comparison, we've made painstaking efforts to invest in subscriptions and validation methods for transactions throughout the United States. And so, with a 500,000 square foot facility like that, you're probably looking at a regional buyer. Well, your sales search should really be a regional approach. So I'm looking for sales in Indiana, in Kentucky, maybe Ohio. I'm kind of expanding my net to figure out, okay, what would someone realistically pay for that property with normal market consideration with cash as of that assessment date that we're trying to replicate. And so that's kind of more of a credible approach. And it results in a more realistic answer that approximates fair market value better for a larger, more complex property that I've described.
Okay. Thus far, Josh, what would you say your biggest challenge has been that you've faced?
Yeah, so probably the biggest challenge has been convincing property owners to review their property taxes because maybe they think they're covered with their CPA or a generalist attorney. They think they're in good shape because no one has filed an appeal, and so they've kind of been lulled to sleep, so to speak. And so just educating the marketplace that, hey, a specialist approach can really make a big difference, and having that seasoned navigator inserted to at least evaluate whether you've been overpaying historically is a great start, because chances are we'll be able to find and uncover savings that you never knew existed just with being open-minded to change the process up a bit.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I see that virtually every day in my business because we run a virtual family office here. We have top experts from all over the country about every area that you can think. And when we talk to a business owner about reducing their income taxes, they say, "Well, I've got a good CPA," and I would hope and imagine that they have a good CPA. But the problem is, that's not the CPA's job.
That's right.
They spend all their time, working with clients doing their tax returns, their compliance work, auditing, payroll, bookkeeping, and most of them just don't have time to do proactive tax planning, and that's not their fault, right? And so, we go in and work with the CPAs, much like I'm assuming that you do, and work as a team. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And so and then the second area that we run into that's a challenge is just convincing a business to not be a do-it-yourselfer, right? Going in and arguing for the business without all of the data that will help you, first of all, evaluate whether you should file an appeal to begin with, but then secondly, having great support through competent, qualified market evidence takes a lot of time. And in many cases, CPAs have no training to appraise property like that properly. And so, that's where, adding a seasoned resource to their team and borrowing that specialist knowledge to execute that plan can make all the difference in the world. And the same holds true with the incentive type projects. when we see a do-it-yourselfer approach, that business is typically leaving at least 50% of the incentive benefit on the table by not having a competitive negotiation process that we can do as an independent advocate for a maximum level incentive project. And so the difference is we're going in and looking at alternative sites, negotiating deals in parallel with alternative sites, and then making sure that everyone is sharpening their pencil on the economic development side, so that that company is achieving maximum level incentives to help compensate for their growing pains with hiring and with capital expansion. And then secondly, negotiating for usable incentives. How many times do we see that business will actually be asking for deduction items that would be dependent on paying corporate income tax levels at the state level, when in fact their depreciation is eating up all of their taxability. And so, that's part of the planning. We want to make sure that business, if we're negotiating incentives, that they'll be able to use them, that they're at maximum levels, and at the end of the day, they're achieving savings that we validate as part of our turnkey solution to provide compliance assistance throughout the life of the incentive, which may last as long as 20 years. So that's another aspect with a do-it-yourselfer approach. The controller is normally going to run out of gas after about 5 to 10 years with dealing with compliance surveys, and then you're eroding the benefit of that incentive, right? And so if we're helping, we're just providing that as part of our solution and helping that business not only achieve the savings, but to validate that they're achieving the savings that is expected and negotiated as part of the original agreement for those incentive amounts.
Tell me, Josh, what's something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
The experience and the time that I spent public accounting, probably just having that epiphany a little earlier, so I would have started the business,
Right.
maybe a few years earlier than I did. But that being said, working in Big Four and regional accounting was a great education in and of itself, a great proving ground. Again, had exposure to some of the largest taxpayers in the country, during, that 18-year stint. And so it was highly valuable. So no regrets there. But
And you found your niche at the Big Four, right?
That's right.
Might not have found it.
That's exactly right. But, hindsight's always 20/20, but, starting the business maybe a few years earlier and just kind of getting over the entrepreneurial, mindset block of, gosh, can I be successful? I've got to mortgage my entire home, with the SBA to start this business up and take that risk. I think that would have been an easier decision had I known what I know today and seen it play out over the past 14 years that since founding my own firm.
As a state tax specialist, you've been involved in real and personal property tax appeal advocacy. Now, can you discuss a challenging case where your advocacy skills played a crucial role in achieving a favorable outcome for the client at the time?
Sure. Yeah. So we serve a number of tier one Japanese automotive manufacturers, right? And one of which comes to mind was kind of more of in do-it-yourself mode, very little questioning. They were using a CPA firm to just prepare their returns, or one of their divisions they were doing it in-house. And so, step one, we kind of did an initial assessment evaluation to determine the state of their reporting, right? And what we uncovered is that their real estate values were grossly overassessed. Secondly, in-house, they were reporting property in classifications that were actually causing them to pay more property tax than they should have. And then the third area was that they were negotiating economic incentives by themselves and not getting the maximum achieved benefit. And so our job was basically to help transform their management for all of those areas to be more opportunistic and planning oriented and strategic, which we did over about a year and a half period of time. And over a 2-year period, we saved them $7.1 million in property tax and economic incentive.
I imagine our listeners are going to like that number.
Absolutely. Well, and it's very common that we'll be able to negotiate incentive packages that offset 5 to 20% of their capital spend. So if you're looking at a business that is, say, looking to grow by $50 million, which, there's a lot of those types of projects out there for manufacturers who need to automate these days, right? 20% on that, that's a game changer for a mid-market type business, to achieve $10 million in benefits. And so that's kind of our norm. Sometimes we're more or less, but at the end of the day, we're able to offer that assurance that there's no money left on the table. We're uncovering every rock and really completing the diligence and inserting a lot of experience into the process, which makes a big difference to the bottom line at the end of the day.
Now, I anticipate that some of our listeners were gonna want to know if they qualify for something like this. So if you could tell me now, I think you probably just explained to us your best fit client.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for our listeners, what type of property value do they have to have for it makes sense for them to hire you?
Well, Terry, normally we're looking at a couple $1 million in assessed value, right?
It's not right.
It's not a massive number. A couple $1 million, they're probably paying, somewhere around $50,000 to $100,000 in property taxes. When you factor in the business personal property tax along with the real estate, they're probably hitting a 6-digit number, right? And so that is a good project. If we're able to achieve a 20% benefit and that recurs over time, that's time well spent on everyone's part, right? And so the best fits that we see these days for our services would be, first of all, manufacturers. Secondly, senior care, so the assisted living, skilled nursing type sites, they pay a ginormous property tax bill. Hotels generally pay at least $100,000 per hotel. And they're high values these days. And so, those are great fits. With the senior care and hotels, there's a lot of complexity with unbundling from their business going concern, what would be the true real estate. And so because of that complexity, the assessors almost never get the real estate valuations right because they're not unbundling intangibles and FF&E type amounts from the cash stream like we can, right? So, that's part of our process. What I would say is we provide a no-cost initial evaluation when we're getting to know a business. So based upon their public records, we can determine how much property tax they pay. We can also determine whether they look to be overassessed based upon historical assessment data. And then we can propose a game plan that makes sense for rolling out our solutions to the business as part of that qualified discussion. So, the nice thing is we're making a great use of everyone's time, even with the initial meeting that we're having with the business, because we're doing our homework up front and not just, taking a generic fishing expedition to hopefully find something, right? So we offer that for no charge. The other aspect that is a really great part of how our clients can be engaged and how we engage our clients is we offer a contingency fee type structure. So if the business doesn't achieve savings, which is extremely rare, by the way, there's no fee. So it's a very simple fee. And if we achieve savings, our fee is funded in multiples with the achieved savings to the business.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. That's good information for our listeners. Thank you.
So it kind of works like auto insurance, where you don't pay for it until you get into a wreck. So we're going to be monitoring that assessment over our engagement term, which normally spans a few years. And if we see something, we'll appeal it and then go to work with our plan. If we believe that the assessment is fair, again, no fee until we actually are needed to solve a problem like that.
Excellent. That's awesome. Josh, having taught at the Institute for Professionals in Taxation, what motivated you to share your expertise in this field, and how has this experience influenced your approach to tax advocacy? That's a mouthful.
So that's just kind of part of my personality. I always like to share my knowledge with interested listeners, right? So in the past 28 years or so, I've had some fantastic public speaking opportunities with a number of CPA society groups across the United States, with the IPT, for such areas as incentives and clawbacks that can happen when a business maybe falls short of their original promises. And it's just been a great opportunity to kind of build knowledge in the marketplace, because any CFO or controller should really care about this big burden area. But in a lot of cases, they don't know that there are resources that can help them really execute on a reduction strategy and move that needle south. And so, because it's a big burden area, half the battle is just helping people understand that there are solutions to help with lowering the property tax, and why a do-it-yourselfer approach is not going to be ideal when you're looking to maximize benefits across the board with all the solutions that we offer to any business owner.
Gotcha. Josh, how do you define success?
First and foremost, I define success with a satisfied and happy client. Secondly, I define success with establishing a long-term relationship and at the renewals, when our clients are saying, yeah, why wouldn't I rehire you to do this again? You've done such a great job for year after year. So building those long-term relationships and seeing those play out for 8 to 10 years, that to me are the two biggest indicators that we've been successful with serving a client. And then on a tertiary basis, the achieved savings and the scorecard that we built over time. But if our client is happy with our services and they want us to remain a long-term business partner, chances are we've knocked the cover off the ball on the savings side. So that's kind of the side note, if you will, indicator. So happy clients. That's my biggest indicator.
Is there anything, Josh, that you wish to share that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, so I would say on the incentive side, you want to, as a business owner, if you're serious about putting together an incentive plan, you want to start as early as possible, as long as 12 months out, so a year out. Ideally, it's at least 6 to 9 months out ahead of, the permitting, ahead of any announcements, that type of thing. But really, bringing the experience in can make a big difference, not only with the achieved benefit, but the amount of time that you're, having to dedicate to support that project. If you're bringing someone who's been there, done that, they're lowering your time so that you can focus on doing what you do best, which is running your business and managing that expansion project. And so we just kind of take that on, take the burden off of a business owner's shoulders, and really take care of the details for them, so that that it frees up their time. And nowadays, time has become more and more valuable. There's a lot of distractions to any CFO or controller, and if we're able to lower those distractions, you've in essence won big time, just with the time element that you can put back into strategically planning, growing your business, and taking care of the details there.
Gotcha. Josh, with the success that you've had, what do you see as your biggest challenge now, and even possibly going forward?
Well, I would say, again, just getting the word out, educating the marketplace. That's just a continued, struggle. So having podcasts like these, and writing content articles, through a myriad of organizations, we're getting the word out. But probably the biggest ask is to just keep having qualified meetings with clients that are motivated to do something about their property tax bill, or to gain more perspective while they're growing and expanding their business, to take care of these strategic areas.
Gotcha. Okay. Excuse me. We've got all of your information down below, with website and email, phone number, etc. But can you share with our audience the best place to go to learn more about you?
Sure. So a couple of spots that come to mind, Terry. First of all, our website, has a background about our team with JM Tax, because I'm not the only person working with us, right? So www.jmtaxadvocates.com is a great spot to learn about our solutions, the industry groups that we serve, case studies. My professional bio is there, certainly. I'm posted on LinkedIn. So feel free to tap into my LinkedIn profile there and connect with me. And then, my email is a great way to reach out at joshua@jmtaxadvocates.com. And, as part of that, I'll respond back and provide a link to my calendar. So if you want to go ahead and schedule an evaluation meeting, you can just do that through our automated scheduling tool there.
That's great stuff, Josh. I really appreciate you having you on today. This has been good stuff. I really enjoyed it. Maybe we can talk some other time, because I run into people all the time that probably need your services. So that's a wrap.
That's great,
folks. This has been Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. Today we've had Josh Mellingchuk, or Chuck, on, and really appreciate you being here. I'm your host, Terry DuPont, and I want you to remember two things. First of all, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And secondly, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. So I'll leave you with that. Join us next week. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
This has been the Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success podcast. If you have questions about creating tax-free wealth and income, forward-looking tax mitigation, strategic risk mitigation, wealth preservation and legacy planning, and advanced financial management, go to DuPontAdvisory.com or email Terry@DuPontAdvisory.com.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.